Well, this section I'm actually recording in the back of the taxi taking me back to the hotel. At this point, I should just say that Uber have excelled themselves here in Mexico. I never imagined that it would be so efficient to be able to just get the iPad out, press go, and then wait outside the circuit, and the taxi would arrive within a few minutes, actually. A lot of whistleblowing, a lot of transito police everywhere, as you would expect in Mexico. But the bottom line is everything works, and although this is a bit of a trip now to the airport, it's probably going to be 30-40 minutes in traffic, it doesn't really matter. It's part of the way of life here, and just to reiterate, staying near the airport is definitely the way to go. That's something I learned in 92, with Rudy's help, obviously. You see the videos in the on my website. But in 91, we stayed in the Aristos Hotel at the recommendation of the organisers. And the Abed family were very much involved at that point too. They owned that hotel, as a matter of fact. And it was a long drive to and from the track every day with the boys. But for 92, we stayed at the airport in what is the Camino Real Hotel now at the airport. And it was brilliant, as it is now. Speaking of the Abed family, as you can just hear noise in the background in the taxi, speaking of the Abed family, I was asking Sergio Perez how this 2015 race has finally come to fruition in the circuit modifications, because there's a lot of talk about Carlos Slim's involvement, and obviously he's played a major role in Sergio Perez's career, Esteban Gutierrez's career, Gabi Chavez racing in America now. He's been very much involved in motorsport for a long time, and there are plenty of other drivers all benefiting from Telcel sponsorship, one of his companies. But the Abeds are also involved, and there's the local government as well, and the federal government. So there's a lot of different factions all had to come together. And the Abeds' role should not be underplayed, I don't think. They've done an exceptional job, again, for Mexico. So that's the circuit in general. Just to walk around it is a sheer delight. I did that today during the 2 practice sessions on Friday. To get to the place I wanted to go in the new Manell Foro, which is an old baseball stadium, huge grandstands, and they've really, really maximised the opportunity there by building in some tight corners, and the cars then disappear under a sort of tunnel, not really, but between the 2 grandstands, and then onto what remains of the old Peralta corner. The atmosphere there was just brilliant. You approach that whole section from, well, you can't actually approach it from the paddock area at all, even though it is right behind the Formula One paddock. You've got to go under the track to the outside of the circuit, where there's some amazing merchandising stalls. There's even a Starbucks there. I couldn't believe it. It's the first time I've ever seen a Starbucks at a Formula One race. Some people like it, some people hate it. But one thing Starbucks are flagship reminders of something that's big and going to stay around. It's in London, if you see a Starbucks opening in a local, in any area, you know they've done their homework, and this is a developing area. It's always a barometer for good property investment, I think. And here they are at the Mexican Grand Prix, admittedly with all the Starbucks logos taped over. For obvious reasons, you can't have anything other than the local providers of food and beverage. But Starbucks are there and doing a very good job. The merchandising, I actually couldn't resist buying one of the jackets, purely because I love to have a jacket with the name Rodriguez on it. Never seen merchandising around the name of those 2 fabulous racing drivers, the brothers, before, and here it is here in Mexico. Anyway, had to walk there, and then you walk over the main road outside the circuit on these bridges here. You can see over one bridge to the outside of the circuit, then back over the other bridge, and eventually you arrive at the back of this stadium section. And it is just like going to any sort of big sports event at the back there. All the vendors, the food, the drink. One thing that's a very nice touch, I think, is that you can't just go up to any of those stalls and buy whatever you want with cash. You go and pay by credit card in a zone in which they have a list of all the things you can potentially buy in that area, and you can only pay by credit card, or I think you can pay by cash probably, but they give you a token, and then you go along to the shop that you in which you want to invest and you buy your product. And a very neat and tidy way of doing it. None of this business of do you take credit cards or cash only or whatever it is from stall to stall. Everything is very well organized. Anyway, I walked through the stadium. It's you don't really know what to expect. You walk through this tunnel, then suddenly you come out in this amazing amphitheater. And when I arrived, it was between the two sessions, and there were Mexican waves going on. This is Friday practice, remember. Mexican waves going on. There were beer, Coke sellers walking up and down as they do in those American baseball stadia and selling everything, massively long queues. I caught up with some friends as well. And then I stayed around for the start of free practice 2 in the grandstand there. And I just wanted to wait because I knew this was a unique moment in probably in sports, certainly in Formula One, the moment when Sergio Perez came into the stadium there and what the crowd would do. And it was just brilliant to be part of that. And what that's going to be like on Sunday, I can only imagine. And if he's on the podium, and the podium is in that stadium section, remember, it is just going to be, well, it's going to be an earthquake probably. I shouldn't say that, but I can't think of any other word to describe it. And that's not the only place on the circuit like that. There's another forum on the far end of the circuit as well, and lots of huge grandstands outside turn 1, 2, 3, and on the straights going down between those corners as well, with big screens opposite the grandstands. There's probably 100,000 seats here, and that's with everybody sitting down, let alone the standing room as well. So very, very impressive, and enjoying every minute of it at the moment. Very, very nice that Nigel Mansell is here as well as the driver steward. Nigel taking that job very seriously, with his moustache again too, looking very much like Nigel Mansell, and bearing in mind his role in the Mexican Grand Prix, won the race twice, and he made history really by passing Gerhard Berger on the outside of the Peraltalda. When Nigel was in the Ferrari, Gerhard was in the McLaren, took Gerhard completely by surprise, 1990, and that was one of the great moments, I think, in Formula One history, if that's the right word. And Nigel is a part of that Mexican Grand Prix fabric, and it's brilliant for me to be able to come back as well to see Nigel here and basically just to carry on almost where we left off in 1992. It sounds ridiculous, but I was chatting to Toto Wolff today, and he was saying to me, well, you won the last race here in Mexico. Well, I was team manager at Williams, and I said, well, yeah, you won the last race this year in Austin, and we congratulated one another, and it was a nice little moment, actually. I was obviously ridiculously out of my depth, and Toto Wolff has achieved far more than I could only dream of what he's achieved. But nonetheless, the last Mexican Grand Prix that was staged here, I was team manager of the winning team. We won 2 races, 91 and 92, when I was managing the team. And in 91, we actually scored the first win for an Adrian Newey designed car as well. Yeah, Patrick Head had a big role to play in the FW14 too, but that was an Adrian car in the sense that it wouldn't have been that car if Adrian hadn't been at Williams, and that was the first win for the 14, admittedly with passive suspension at that point. So it's kind of strange being here for that, and then nothing happened in Formula One parlance in Mexico until we've come back now, and it's amazing. So Joe Ramirez, lovely to see him in the paddock, and lots of other old friends as well. This race has got a real buzz about it, and as I said in one of the videos, I think it's excellent that this is the race that follows Lewis's Drivers' Championship in Austin, because we would have been heading towards a massive depression, or anticlimax anyway, at the next race, but it isn't. This is almost as well, it's more scintillating really than the championship that had to be clinched in Austin. This is the Mexican Grand Prix back on the calendar for all its wonderful aspects. One of the nicest areas, I thought, was the support paddock, all under one roof, as the Formula One paddock used to be. And look at this, a Pedro Rodriguez liveried Yardley BRM 1970 P153 V12. What a car. And that's sitting there under the lights in the support paddock. I hope the Formula One boys take the trouble to go in there, because that is really, I think, how I would love to see paddocks always under one roof like that, and all the cars together. Here's a picture of the beautiful classics that are going to be used for the drivers' parade on Sunday. One of my goals, if I can pull it off, I'll be pleased. I doubt that I will. One of my goals between now and Sunday is to see whether Nigel Mansell can be included in either that driver's parade or can do some laps on his own or a lap on his own in an open car, because I think the crowd would love to see Nigel again. He is a hero, as I said earlier, and I think he should be out there doing some sort of lap as well. The speeds on the straight were the big talking point today. Nico Rosberg quickest in the Mercedes, 356 kilometers an hour, and the prediction is that he may do, or somebody may do on the back of that, 361 in a tow on Saturday. So we'll wait and see. If that happens, it will become the fastest straight in Formula One. I think 357 is the top speed at Monza. So we're almost there anyway. Long straight, high altitude, and very, very impressive to watch those cars. I love that long straight. So that was the main thing. The track was pretty greasy today, and it did rain on and off, which was a good thing because we saw the cars moving around. We saw lots of incidents. Max Verstappen's was a bit odd. He was on a pretty good lap when he came through the stadium section where I was watching in free practice 2. Not very Maxish. He was taking quite late apexes, if that's the right word, apices, but getting on the power quite soon, looking quite Jenson Buttonish actually, unlike Max. And I just thought to myself as he disappeared between the two grandstands, yeah, he's just leaving a bit of margin there and dialing himself in the usual Max way, being quickest in the first session. And he went off at the next corner, just sort of lost the back end, and then the front came round and he took the corner off, and here you can see what the Toro Rosso looked like. And I was walking over the bridge at that point, and the car was just below me, just next to the big motorway next to us. And that's what he did. Not major damage, wouldn't have been too good for the Toro boys, but equally, Max hasn't had that many shunts of that ilk. Okay, he had the race shunt in Monaco, but hasn't had too many science-type shunts where he's just hit the wall on his own. And I think this will be quite a good moment for Carlos Sainz, I suspect, when he's seeing his teammate doing what he's done. And then if Carlos just puts his head down, he could be in for a good race this weekend, I think. The Nico Rosberg brake thing was quite interesting too. Rear brakes basically catching a light. And that was simply just a question of underducting them. The thinner air here does require a lot more from the cars in terms of getting everything cooled. And you would imagine that if anything was going to go, it would be the front brakes, but it was the rears. Talking to Tony Ross afterwards, and yeah, they just underducted the rear brakes, so they had to open those up for the second session. And so that's about it for Friday. The only other comment I would make is that I just love the way this circuit is combining its heritage and its history with 2015, and you see that everywhere in little touches, whether it be buildings, whether it be the way they've done graphics, their attention to detail in the media center. Everything reeks of a circuit that knows what Formula One's all about, and that's a bit of a generalization, I suppose. It's difficult to really put it into more precise words. I think they just have a lot of feel for the sport here, and perhaps this explains best what I'm trying to say. Inside the media center, and indeed a lot of the offices, the administration offices, FOM, FIA, etc., there are some beautiful paintings done by a local artist of great moments in Formula One time. I'm going to put all of those on my website, peterwindsor.com, but here are just a couple, and some of them so eye-catching that you sort of watch it as you're walking towards it, and as you go past it, you keep turning your head looking at it. I love it, and some people it may not be their taste, but the point is these paintings are everywhere, and not many circuits would go to that much trouble, and I really, really love that about this place and what they've done. The other thing, of course, is that the paddock layout is still basically as the Mexican paddock always was. Although, of course, it was dug up after the first life of Mexico, which was basically 62 through to 1970, because it was actually built, I hate to say it was built on top of a cemetery, and they felt it was probably better to move the cemetery elsewhere. So a lot of digging took place after that last race in 1970, and the paddock had a different feel to it, if that's the right word, when we started again in 1986. And as I've said in my video, I think the Rodriguez brothers are part of the fabric of this whole race, but it's nice too to see a corner named after Moises Solana, who is another Mexican driver, quite a wealthy driver, but he did well, certainly at national level, and had the enthusiasm to rent Grand Prix drives, not only in Mexico, but in also a couple of other races, US Grand Prix, etc., and sometimes raced in Europe, notably for Lotus, but he also he started off racing that famous Centro Sud BRM that was driven by so many different drivers, Lorenzo Bandini and Phil Hill to name but two, and Moises raced that, and then became a sort of third Lotus driver for a pretty regular period for a while, and that was nice as well. So sadly he lost his life in a transit stage on a rally not so long ago. He's obviously in his 70s by then. He wasn't even driving. He had just been, he had been driving and he was taking a nap, and it looked as if the younger driver was having a bit of a race with some other competitor on a transit stage, and they had an accident and Moises was killed. It was very sad moment for Mexican motorsport. Anyway, a corner named after him, corner named after Nigel Mansell. Guess which one? Peraltada as it exists today. And as I've said in the video, if you're going to make that corner much safer, make it as safe as a 2015 Formula One corner should be and can be, then they've done it exactly the right way. They've replaced the trademark corner with another trademark corner, and they've done it beautifully. So that was Friday in Mexico. It's really enjoying it, really enjoying the atmosphere. You get up very early to avoid the traffic, and you get back pretty late because of the traffic, and you leave in the night and you go back in the night, but during the day there's lots going on. And this is a Grand Prix that I think everybody's embracing with open arms, and pretty looking forward to the remaining 2 days.